There comes a moment, silent and unseen, when a man looks in the mirror and no longer recognizes who he's become. The world has chipped away at his spirit. The noise, the failure, the distractions, the opinions, they've all left their mark. He sees the shell of who he was supposed to be, not the man he envisioned when he dreamed with fire in his chest and lightning in his soul. That moment is sacred, because that is the beginning of the rebuild. The quiet revolution, the burning decision to rise. And here's the truth few will tell you: you must rebuild yourself alone. Not because you're unloved, not because no one cares, but because the path to power, to discipline, to true transformation is walked in solitude. Just like a blacksmith forges iron in the solitude of fire and force, you will forge your new self in the fire of isolation and the pressure of discipline. Think of the greats. Every titan of history passed through a furnace of loneliness. Henry Ford was mocked, abandoned by investors, laughed at by the establishment. Yet he kept hammering the vision no one else could see. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before the world saw his light. Walt Disney went bankrupt, fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination, and lived in poverty before the mouse changed everything. They didn't have cheering crowds. They had grit. They had conviction. They had nights where the only voice they heard was doubt. And they kept building. You want change? Then start here. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for applause. Rebuild yourself alone. The reason most people stay stuck isn't because they don't want success. It's because they're addicted to company, to validation, to comfort. But you will never find yourself in the approval of others. You will only find fragments. To find your whole self, you must go inward. You must detach. You must retreat from the world long enough to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Solitude is not a punishment. It's a power source. When you strip away the noise, you meet the truth, and yes, the truth will confront you. It will expose your laziness, your excuses, your dependence, your fear, but it will also reveal your potential. Your hunger, your greatness, it's all there, waiting. But it won't come alive until you step into the silence and say, I'm done living as half of who I could be. Because belief is born in solitude. You don't build belief with cheers. You build it with repetition. You build it when no one sees you at 5 a.m. grinding, when you're reading while others sleep, when you're training while others party, when you're broke and still investing in yourself. Default rebuilding yourself means burning the old blueprint, the one given to you by society, by family, by fear. It means questioning everything, your habits, your environment, your standards. Most people never do this. They live recycled lives, playing scripts handed down to them without question. But the few who pause, reflect, reject the lie, those few become unstoppable. Look around. The average man is distracted, reactive, lost in the fog of comparison. But you are here because something inside you refuses to die quietly. There is a war cry in your soul. A whisper saying, this isn't it, there's more. Listen to that voice. It's not delusion. It's destiny calling. When Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich, he wasn't giving a get-rich-quick formula. He was revealing the inner architecture of achievement. He interviewed 500 of the world's most successful men: Carnegie, Rockefeller, Ford, Edison, and what did he discover? That wealth begins in the mind, that faith, definiteness of purpose, and persistence were the real gold. And where are those built? Not in comfort, not in crowds, but in solitude, in silence, in the invisible places where discipline becomes devotion. You will be misunderstood. Count on it. The moment you step away from the herd, they'll say you've changed. They're right. You are no longer available for mediocrity. You are no longer willing to tolerate your own excuses. You're no longer waiting for life to hand you something. You are taking it. That kind of man is dangerous, not because he hurts others, but because he is no longer controlled by them. He thinks for himself. He walks alone, and in doing so, walks ahead. But don't confuse solitude with isolation. You are not withdrawing to escape. you are retreating to transform. Like the caterpillar in the cocoon, this is your metamorphosis. The old you must dissolve so the new you can emerge, and that requires time in the dark. It requires faith when results haven't shown up yet. It requires vision when the bank account is low and the doubt is high. But let me tell you something. This season of loneliness, of work, of silence, it's not punishment. It's preparation. Preparation for a life most will never taste. A life of clarity, of control, of contribution. A life where you wake up with intention, move with purpose, and sleep with peace. That life is not given, it is earned, in the shadows. Away from applause alone. So start today, strip away the noise. Let the world do what it will. You are building something eternal, something no one can see yet. But you will feel it in your bones. You will see it in the mirror, and one day, they will ask how you did it. And you'll smile not out of pride, but out of truth, and say, I rebuilt myself alone. The mind is the battlefield. Before you conquer the world, you must conquer yourself. And the enemy is not failure. It's not rejection. It's not the opinions of others. The enemy is your own doubt, the quiet whisper that tells you to play small, to delay, to stay comfortable. Rebuilding yourself begins with a war on that voice. Because that voice is a liar. It was born from your past failures, from wounds you didn't choose but carried anyway. It echoes the beliefs of the blind, those who gave up and want you to join them in the cage. But you were not born for the cage. You were born to climb, to build, to lead, to rise, and rising means rewiring. You must rewire the way you think, speak, act, and believe. You must rebuild your inner dialogue until it aligns with power, not pity. Clarity, not confusion. Drive, not doubt. Every thought you think carves a groove in your mind. Most people walk around with trenches of limitation carved so deep they mistake them for reality. But you're carving new paths now. Every time you choose discipline over distraction. Every time you rise early instead of sleeping in. Every time you keep a promise to yourself when no one's watching, you are rewiring your brain for greatness. This is the real alchemy. Turning struggle into strength, turning fear into fuel. And don't mistake silence for stagnation. The seed breaks in silence, the roots grow in darkness. No one applauds the seed, but the fruit is inevitable if the work is done beneath the surface. There's a clarity that only comes in isolation, a knowing. You start to see where your energy has been leaking, the people who drain you, the habits that sabotage you, the patterns you've repeated so long they've become invisible prisons. You begin to ask better questions. Who am I becoming? What am I tolerating? What would my life look like if I only accepted excellence? These questions ignite the rebuild because clarity is the spark that ignites purpose. Purpose is not found in a job title or a paycheck. It's found in alignment, when your actions match your values, when your habits match your vision, when your daily decisions echo your destiny, not your distractions, and that begins alone. Purpose requires you to say no, often and without guilt. No to mediocrity, no to compromise, no to relationships that pull you backward. No to the weaker version of yourself who just wants to be liked. Because the man you're becoming doesn't chase acceptance, he commands respect. And he does it by becoming so rooted in his mission that nothing sways him, not failure, not success, not fear. That kind of man becomes uncheckable. But understand this, rebuilding yourself is not just about cutting things off, it's about constructing something new. You must replace the old with the intentional, replace addiction with discipline. Replace entertainment with education, replace comfort with growth. You will need structure, daily non-negotiables. Habits that anchor your future, morning rituals that armor your mind. Evening reflections that sharpen your clarity. Books, mentors, silence, all tools of the rebuild. Do you know what made Lincoln great? It wasn't the applause, it was the solitude. The long nights reading by firelight, the relentless self-education, the deep inner wrestling with failure, grief, and destiny. When he led a fractured nation through civil war, he did not lead from charisma, He led from character. And character is forged in the fire of solitude. So you must become the architect of your own mind, chisel out the weakness, reinforce the foundation with philosophy, discipline, vision. This is where belief becomes conviction, when you no longer dabble in greatness but devote yourself to it. And don't be surprised when the world doesn't understand. When you stop showing up to the places you once did, when your conversations change, when your silence becomes louder than their noise, they won't understand. That's okay. They're not supposed to. This journey is not for them, it's for you. You are becoming the man who can carry a dream that would crush others. The man who doesn't collapse under pressure, but sharpens. Who doesn't flinch in adversity, but focuses. And that transformation, it demands everything. You must be willing to let go of the man you were. Because that man was built for survival, you are building for legacy. This is the moment you realize no one is coming to save you. And that's not a curse, that's a gift because it means you are free. Free to write your own code, free to craft your own laws. Free to take full ownership of every inch of your life. Responsibility is power. Total responsibility is total freedom. And that begins in solitude, not the kind that weakens, but the kind that strengthens. The solitude of a man who is sharpening his sword while the world sleeps. The solitude of a builder who knows that the structure rising in his mind will one day stand tall in the world. So you keep building brick by brick, day by day. You don't ask if it's working, you trust that it is. Because men who move mountains don't ask for signs, they become them. There is a discipline that awakens in a man when he commits, not casually, but completely. When he no longer negotiates with weakness, when he no longer needs motivation, because he has become the embodiment of it. That's what rebuilding alone gives you. It kills the part of you that waits, and it births the man who decides. Discipline is the backbone of the rebuild. It is not glamorous, it does not shout, it whispers. It whispers in early mornings, in quiet sacrifices, in the decision to do the hard thing not once, but every time. And slowly, quietly, it begins to change you. Until one day, you look back and realize the man you were no longer exists. He was left behind in the workouts you didn't skip, in the meals you cleaned up, in the hours you studied, in the nights you chose purpose over pleasure. That version of you, the reactive one, the uncertain one, the comfort-addicted one, he died so this one could live. That's how greatness is built, not in explosions, but in evolutions. When Napoleon Hill spoke of definiteness of purpose, he wasn't just referring to a goal, he meant obsession. A reason so clear and compelling that you become immune to distraction. You don't just want to win, you must. You don't just hope to succeed, you expect to. Because you have become the kind of man who no longer tolerates anything less. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. When your purpose becomes the lens through which you see every decision, life simplifies. You're no longer pulled in 10 directions, you no longer ask, should I do this? You already know if it builds the mission, it stays. If it weakens you, it goes. Clarity is your compass. And clarity is only found when the world's voice is silenced long enough for your own to be heard. But don't mistake clarity for ease. This road is not smooth, it's steep, it's brutal. There will be days you want to quit, days your mind will scream for comfort, for distraction, for validation. But those days are the forge, they are where average men fold. But not you, because you made a decision. Not a preference, a decision that this life, this transformation, this rebuild is non-negotiable. And with that decision comes power, the power to say no without explanation. The power to outwork, outlast, and outfocus. The power to keep going when the world is sleeping. The power to sacrifice pleasure today for a legacy that will echo tomorrow. Think of Carnegie. He came from nothing, slept in a one-room home with his family, worked as a bobbin boy in a factory for $1.20 a week. But he didn't curse the poverty. He used it, turned it into fuel. became obsessed with value, with leverage, with vision. And by the end of his life, he had built an empire and given away 90% of his fortune. That's not luck, that's legacy built through obsession. You want that kind of power? Then you must be willing to do what most never will. To suffer with dignity, to sacrifice in silence, to rise without applause. Because success is not about addition, it's about subtraction. You must subtract every excuse, every weak habit, every toxic influence, until what's left is pure, uncheckable, unbreakable. This is the man you are becoming. He doesn't complain, he adjusts. He doesn't beg, he builds. He doesn't react, he responds. And when life hits him, as it will, he doesn't collapse, he recalibrates. Because adaptability is the hidden weapon of the self-made. You must become like water, powerful enough to carve canyons, flexible enough to fill any space, relentless enough to find a way. Life will not hand you perfect conditions, it will test you with chaos, loss, uncertainty. But the man who adapts wins. You cannot wait for ideal. You must become ready for anything. That's why this rebuild is so much more than a personal transformation. It's a preparation for war, a preparation for opportunity, for love, for wealth, for leadership, for impact. Because when those things show up, and they will, the question is not whether they exist. The question is, will you be ready? Most aren't because they skip the season of solitude. They tried to skip the pain. They tried to microwave the process. But there is no shortcut through the fire. You must walk through it, burn away the weakness. Let the pain refine you. Let the silence grow you, and then emerge. Not the same man, a new one, a weapon, a lighthouse. A builder, a leader, one who doesn't need to talk about who he is because he shows it in every action. This is the rebuild, ruthless, honest, uncomfortable, sacred. And when the day comes, when the silence ends, when the mission calls, when the doors open, you will step forward not as someone hoping to be ready, but as someone who knows he is because you earned it alone. Gratitude, it might sound soft to a man immersed in the grind. But understand this, gratitude is not weakness, it's not surrender. It's not pretending everything is perfect. No, gratitude is strength. It's choosing to see the value in the struggle while you're still in the storm. It's refusing to let pain make you blind to progress. A man rebuilding himself alone learns that gratitude isn't about what he has, it's about what he's becoming. It's being thankful not for the comfort, but for the challenge. Not for the easy days, but for the hard ones that shaped him. It's looking at failure and saying, "Thank you for the lesson." It's standing in the rubble of the old self and smiling, not because it's over, but because you finally get to build something better. Gratitude turns survival into sovereignty. And here's the paradox, the more grateful you become, the more power you gain. Because gratitude breaks the chains of bitterness. Bitterness keeps you anchored to the past, gratitude moves you forward. It says, I lost things, yes, I was betrayed, yes. I suffered, yes, but I am still here, and because I am still here, I still have power. You start to see life differently. You stop asking, why me? And start declaring, try me. That's when resilience takes root. Resilience is not about bouncing back, it's about bouncing forward. It's about becoming something stronger because of what broke you. Steel is hardened by fire. Diamonds are formed under pressure, and men are built by setbacks. If they use them, most crumble, but not you. You've learned to use your wounds. They are no longer liabilities, they're leverage. You remember the pain, not to suffer, but to sharpen, not to wallow, but to rise. Because now, the scars are not signs of weakness, they are symbols of survival. They tell the world, I've been through hell, and I came back carrying fire. This is where learning becomes your edge. Because rebuilding alone gives you one advantage most never earn, the ability to learn directly from life. No sugarcoating, no middlemen. Just raw experience. Every failure teaches you. Every misstep refines you. Every success humbles you. And because you've taken full responsibility, you own those lessons. You apply them, you improve, you evolve. You read books not to feel smart, but to upgrade your operating system. You study masters not to copy them, but to understand the architecture of excellence. You don't fear mistakes, you fear staying the same. Because now, growth is not optional, it's your oxygen. And here's the truth the world won't tell you. You don't need motivation anymore, you need mastery. Motivation is a spark. Mastery is a flame that never goes out. It's the relentless repetition of right decisions. It's showing up when it's boring. It's staying late when you're tired. It's pushing again when your legs shake and your mind begs you to quit. The masters, they're not the most gifted. They're the most consistent. They outlast everyone else. They move with purpose long after others lose interest. That's the kind of man you are becoming. One whose presence speaks louder than his words. One whose results are impossible to ignore. One who is feared by excuses because he doesn't entertain them. And when the world tries to throw its chaos at you, and it will, you will not flinch. Because you've rebuilt your inner world, that's where the real victory lies. Not in how much money you make, or how loud your name gets, but in how still you can remain when the noise gets loud. Still and unstoppable like the eye of the storm. Because you've become grounded, not reactive, rooted, not rushed, clear, focused, intentional. That's when true power reveals itself. Not when you control others, but when you control yourself. Your emotions, your thoughts, your focus, your energy. You stopped being at the mercy of moods and momentum. You command them, and that is what makes you rare. Most people never even meet that version of themselves. They live and die as echoes of culture, of parents, of fear, of comfort, but you chose the fire. You chose the silence, you chose the rebuild. And now you've become the architect of your life. You no longer react to the day, you design it. You no longer beg for opportunity, you create it. You no longer settle for survival, you demand victory. Because you've seen what's possible. Not in a book, not in a video, but in the mirror. The man staring back at you now, he was forged, not found, built, not born. Designed with intent, rebuilt with fire, and refined in silence, that is what changes everything. This is the moment where everything crystallizes, the pain, the solitude, the sacrifice. It wasn't just suffering, it was sacred, it was your initiation. Because no man becomes legendary by accident. He is reborn in the dark, when no one sees, when no one claps, when no one believes, but he does, and you did. You believed when there was nothing but silence. You rose when there was no applause. You stood when everything in you wanted to kneel. And now you carry something most men never touch. The fire of self-made power, not inherited, not given, earned. You are no longer the man waiting to be chosen. You are the chooser, you decide the pace. You dictate the standard, you are the storm now. You rebuilt yourself alone, and because of that, there is nothing this world can take from you. Not failure, not betrayal, not loss, because you've already faced those demons. And you didn't flinch, you learned, you adapted. You moved forward anyway. They will try to understand you now, they'll say you changed. And they're right, you evolved. They'll ask what happened, and you'll smile. Because you know it was never one thing. It was everything. It was the silent mornings, the heavy lifts, the broken nights, the pages you read, the lies you rejected, the tears you turned into fuel, the discipline that burned while others slept. You built a foundation from pain. You laid bricks with purpose, you crowned it with clarity. And now you own the structure. You are the house that fire couldn't burn down. And here's the truth most never learn. Power is not in having everything. Power is in needing nothing. You no longer need approval. You no longer need permission. You no longer need the world to believe in you because you believe in yourself. That belief is unshakable, unbreakable. And it changes everything. It changes the way you speak, with precision, not noise. It changes the way you move with certainty, not haste. It changes the way you lead with vision, not fear. The man who rebuilt himself alone is dangerous, not because he seeks to destroy, but because he cannot be destroyed. He has faced the abyss and came back with order. He has tasted defeat and turned it into wisdom. He has walked through fire and emerged refined. You are that man. And now the world will feel your presence, not through words, but through your results. Not through noise, but through your discipline. Not through force, but through your example. You are not just alive, you are awake. You are not just dreaming, you are executing. You are not just surviving, you are leading. And it all began when you chose the hardest path. To rebuild yourself alone, that decision, that sacred, quiet, painful decision, became the turning point, and now everything changes. Because now the world no longer sees who you were. Now they see who you became. Let them stare. You earned it.